Dr. Chike Akua has been on our Black Knowledge Matters program. He was on about 3 years ago. And, if you follow him on Facebook, I actually have an Instagram account, but I'm older, so I just stay with Facebook. But he's all over and travels. I want to just share some things from his bio, really fantastic bio that he has. Um, he has the title of Nana, which is given to you in Ghana, and so I'm assuming that he got this at his naming ceremony. So Nana, Dr. Chike Akua, is an associate professor of higher education leadership at Clark Atlanta University, is one of the most sought after speakers at urban schools, colleges, universities, and educational conferences. As a former underperforming student who struggled in high school, Dr. Akua understands the process of personal and cultural transformation to inspire today's students. Dr. Akua is the author of 12 books in total, producer of a series of historical videos online, and 70 Black history and African proverb posters, along with Reading Revolution Online, a culturally relevant web-based academic support tool that increases comprehension, vocabulary development, and grammar and writing skills. Dr. Akua's most recent books include Honoring Our Ancestral Obligations, 7 Steps to Black Student Success, and Kepera, the Ancient Kemetic Concepts in Education and Transformation. Dr. Akua earned a doctorate in educational policy studies at Georgia State University, a Master of Arts degree in education with a concentration in school counseling from Clark Atlanta University, and is a Bachelor of Arts is a Bachelor of Arts degree in education from Hampton University. He's been featured in Ebony Magazine, more recently in Black Enterprise Magazine and the Washington Post, for his work as an innovative educational leader. He has helped lead over 1,000 students and parents on trips throughout Kemet, sorry, Dr. Akua, Egypt / Kemet, Ghana, Senegal, Morocco, through the African Genesis Institute. In 1922, Dr. Akua was installed as a chief.
Not 1922.
Did I say 1922? I'm sorry.
Sir.
Let me just stop and introduce our great speaker today. Glad that you could be with us, sir. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's such a blessing to be here with you, Baba Imhotep. I really appreciate the invitation. And I was rushing home, breaking all the speed limits to get here in time, coming from campus, from teaching this evening, but definitely wanted to be here with you all this evening. So it's great to be here.
Sounds like you made all the lights because, you said that you were going to be here about 5:20. I was trying to think of some filler, but I'm glad that you made
it. I decided to do something I rarely class out a little bit early. I let them out about 15 minutes early, so that allowed me to get back in time.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I was wondering. I mean, you gave me some pretty good questions. I'm really interested in your book, Kepper.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are we recording right now?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Good deal. I'll share a few things from my PowerPoint to give you an idea of, what inspired me to write that book. For a number of years now, I had been kind of just keeping track of a number of different ancient Kemetic concepts that I would come across in my studies. And then also from when I would go to Kemet and helped to lead study tours and different things of that nature. And I had the idea probably over 10 or 12 years ago. So I just been compiling this list of concepts that I felt that the average person would need if they were really going to understand, have a basic foundation for understanding ancient Kemet as it related to education and transformation. And so that's how we came up with the book. Um, I decided to go ahead and finish writing it, and it kind of took on a whole different um, tenor than I had originally intended.
Hmm.
Originally, I wanted it to be this kind of almost like a glossary of Kemetic concepts, but then it became clear that I needed to add some other historical information about it. And then, as my wife was reading and helping me to edit it, she said, "This is the language that you're using is kind of very academic. It needs to be more approachable." And so that's what made me decide to write a chapter on my journey as an African scholar to help the reader to connect to the information. And from what I'm hearing from people who have read it, they said that's the part that's an absolute game changer. Everything else is great. It's a tremendous resource, but the connecting piece, the mortar that holds the bricks together, was me telling my story of how I had the opportunity to meet and study with and from all of these amazing African scholars like Asa Hilliard and Malefia Sante and Dr. Charles Finch and just some of our top scholars who have dedicated their lives to this work. So as I was mulling over the manuscript, I said, I need a title. I thought the title was going to be Ancient Kemetic Concepts, an Education for Transformation. But then as I began to meditate on it more, that's when Kepra came to me. And the reason it came to me is because of its tremendous spiritual, cultural, and uh, just tremendous significance. So I was asking the question, what are the essential ideas and concepts of ancient Kemet to gain an understanding of the original systems of culture, education, and transformation? So, of course, Kepra, as you all know, means being or becoming. Okay. And the reason that it's symbolized by the scarab beetle is because, as you know, our ancestors were very keen observers of nature. And in observing nature, they noticed cycles and patterns and processes in nature. And when they saw the scarab beetle, what they noticed was that the scarab beetle, excuse me, would lay its eggs in a ball of dung. Well, that seems strange. Why would a loving mother lay its eggs in a ball of dung? Well, it did that for a couple of different reasons. Number one, it did that to protect it from predators. So, other predators wouldn't see them there and wouldn't bother a ball of dung. But also, the scarab beetle lays its eggs in a ball of dung for incubation purposes to keep it warm. But then they noticed that every scarab beetle that they would observe would always push this ball of dung in the direct path of the sun. And they found this very interesting. And so, of course, in ancient Kemet, one of the big myths, I don't want to use the word myths, one of the greatest misunderstandings is that the ancient Kemetic people worshiped the sun. They didn't worship the sun, they saw the sun as a representation of the power of the Most High. That just as the power of the Creator. And so the sun became a physical manifestation. The sun became a physical manifestation of the power of the Most High. And so as the scarab beetle would push this ball of dung in the direct path of the sun, ultimately, after the flooding of the Nile, when the Nile waters would recede, then the eggs would hatch and they would come up and fly up out of this ball of dung. Well, what's the spiritual significance of that? The idea is that sometimes we find in our lives, we find ourselves in circumstances that are like this ball of dung. Uh, and I don't know if you've ever said to yourself in one way or another, man, how did I get into this? Right? Or some people were born into a messy situation, born into messy family situations or impoverished situations or abusive situations. And so their life is like that ball of dung. But the idea is if you will walk in the path of the sun, which represents light, wisdom, and illumination, if you will keep walking in the direct path of the sun, no matter how bad that ball of dung smells or may seem to be, ultimately, you will be able to rise up and transcend your circumstances and fly high above your challenges, trials, and troubles. Hi, brother.
You know, Dr. Akua, I just want to say that just for like a split second, you're kind of pausing. So just make you aware that we didn't pick up the last couple of words that you just said.
Oh, okay. The last thing that I said was as long as the scarab beetle will walk in the direct path of the sun, when we are in challenging circumstances, if we will continue to walk in the path of the sun, which represents light, wisdom, and illumination, then like the scarab beetles that are in the eggs, we too can rise above our circumstances and come forth with new life and fly high above the challenges and trials that we're going through. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so it was that was the centerpiece of what I wanted to communicate by naming the book Kepra. But Kepra is one of only of 70 different concepts that I explore in the book. And I'll take a few moments to share some others, and then you can, but you can feel free to interrupt me at any time, okay?
You know what? Can I just ask you one of the obvious things to me with respect to Kepler is, you know, when you look at, you know, like an overview of the beetle and compare it to a human skull, it looks remarkably similar. Do you talk about that in your book?
Yes, so as a matter of fact, I came to find that to be true as well. I believe it was Renee Schwaller-Lubitz who talked about that in his book, The Temple in Man.
Yes.
And he showed, um, let me see if I can pull up that picture because I didn't. Yeah, here it is. Uh, in one of my presentations, I actually had a uh, a glyph of that, not a glyph, but a graphic of that to show it. So I'll
Hmm.
see if I can find that. But it's very striking that he was able to make that comparison, and then when you lay it over it, you can see the similarities. So give me just a second. I think I may have found it here in just a second. Did I?
Now, is that the book that? So there's a couple of books. There's the Temple in Man, that's like a smaller book, and then there's the Temple of Man, that's like a bigger book, and it's you know it's a lot of money. Uh,
Right, right. Yes, I believe it was in the smaller one
ah,
and the bigger one. But so here we see, yeah, so you can see that if you look at a skull
hmm.
from above, you can
Yes.
see that it's shaped the same as a scarab beetle. And so here again, if we walk in the path of the sun, which represents light, wisdom, and illumination, then the idea is that we will be able to come forth with new life in the same way that the scarab beetle does. And remember, the scarab beetle did this every year, so it continued to be an annual motif to remind us. There were all of these cyclical processes in nature that would remind us of these things, lest you would forget. And so this is yet another reason why our ancestors studied nature meticulously, so much so that the word for nature, we get the word nature from the Kemetic word necher.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And Netra, of course, is really the name of the creator in ancient Kemet. So there's so many different things that I learn. I always learn so much as I'm working on a book also, that just continues to add to the things that I study. So give me just a second and I'll go back to my other PowerPoint here. So
Thank you. Thank you for pausing on that. Thank you for
yeah,
sharing.
and like I said, feel free to interrupt me at any time,
Mhm.
because I definitely would like for it to be more of a dialogue than a lecture. But
Mhm.
another concept that was very important to me is permijat. Permijat. As a scholar and a researcher, this was important to me because permijat means house of books, or what we today will call a library, right? Now, this is very, very important. I'm reminded of a lecture I heard from Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, and he said that when he went to study at Oxford University in England, he was told by his professors that African people were pre-literate, meaning that they came along at a time when nobody was reading or writing. He said, I didn't realize that the people that were telling me that my ancestors were pre-literate themselves. So it's very foolish to say, because some people will say, well, we had a storytelling culture. Well, that's true, but we also wrote everything down as well in most of our cultures, certainly in the preeminent culture of ancient Kemet. And so this concept of permajat demonstrates that very thoroughly. Asa Hilliard tells us that as far back as the as 2300 BCE, before the Common Era or before the Christian era, during the sixth dynasty, there was a governor of the House of Books to organize and oversee the research literature. That's very significant because um, this is different than just a library where you go to read fiction. Okay, and I didn't understand this until I, started studying for my went to graduate school to work on my doctorate and so forth. Um, Research literature is the scientific research that scientists have conducted and written about over decades, centuries, and millennia. I want you to think about that for just a second. For over decades, tens of years, centuries, hundreds of years, millennia, thousands of years, these libraries contain thousands of years of research literature.
Mhm.
And the ancient Kemetic people were very meticulous in their documentation of these things. Okay, so give me just a second. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint here. So this concept of permajat is very, very important. And as you can see, I'm sitting in my permajat. And what you see behind me might be a third of my library, might be a third of my library. I was blessed and fortunate to be able to study with Dr. Asa Hilliard, and sometimes he would call us over to his house. I was part of the Jegna Collective, which was Black educators think tank. Okay, and he would call us over to his house, and in his basement he had a main room, and then three different rooms off of the main room. Each of the three rooms had books from floor to ceiling, all the way around the room. It was
Wow.
absolutely astounding to see. I had already started my own little personal library, but after I saw that, I said, "Man, I gotta get serious," because he would say to people, you need a library to make you competent, and most of the books that you need in your library are not the ones that your professors are going to assign you or that you're going to see in common circulation. So I began to be very thoughtful about collecting the right books that would equip me to carry on the same kind of research. So that concept of permajat is very, very important. Another important concept is heka or hekat, sometimes said hekau. And heka means words of power. Here you see it written in Medu Neter, or what later people will come to call hieroglyphics. Another shortened way to represent heka is like this: a twisted piece of flax with the outstretched arms above it, which represents the spirit. The twisted piece of flax is what was used as the wick in candles. So why would they use a glyph that represents the wick of a candle and then the upraised arms, ka, representing soul or spirit? What that means is that the words that we speak are spirit. The words that we use bring light and life. We've also heard it said in the biblical scriptures that death and life and death are in the power of the tongue. Well, that comes thousands of years after it was written in the book of Keti that God gave them words of power as weapons to ward off the blow of evil events, guarding them by day and by night. So this notion of the power of words is very, very important. And we see this notion all throughout Africa dealing with the power of the word. So, for example, in West Africa, we see the concept of nomo, which represents the power of the word. We also can look in the Songhai language.
Let me ask you, Nomo, is that Dogon that
I
you're?
want to say that's, yes, I want to say that's Dogon, yes.
Oh, okay.
And in the Songhai Empire, or Songhai as it's pronounced, in the Songhui language, there's a concept called Chini Bibi, which means black word. And it is said in the Songhui language that Chini Bibi means in the beginning was the black word, and the black word had the power to transform and make things move. Man, when I heard that, I almost jumped out of my skin because I come from a background in Christian ministry. So when it says in the beginning was the black word, that took me immediately to the Gospel of John that opens up by saying, in the
In the
beginning was the
beginning was.
word, and the
Yeah.
word uh, was with God, and the word was God
Yes.
and so forth. So I'm constantly drawing all of these comparisons, but of course, the Kemetic tradition came first and came thousands of years before the biblical scriptures. Okay.
Dr. Akua,
Hmm.
so you might be headed this way, but just in case you're not, when I look at that, I'm glad that you said that it's a twisted flax, but you know, again, just like the 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 skull, that when I look at it, it represents DNA, the DNA structure.
Double helix.
Yeah.
As soon as right before you said that, I was seeing the same thing, and I had never considered that before until you said what I'm seeing, and then I was like, oh, that's the DNA too. It could very well be that. It could very well be that. Tony Browder sent me a glyph a few years ago. I believe it's in Ramesses the Third's tomb, and it shows what he regarded as the double helix. And the reason that he was able to determine that it represented the double helix of the DNA is because it was this same uh, similar looking glyph, but instead of being vertical, it was horizontal,
Mm.
and it had Ramesses the Third, and then that rope between him and then several ancestors that came before him. So in between each of them was this double helix rope, which suggested to Tony Browder that they were very clearly knowledgeable about DNA and the structure of DNA and so forth.
Yes.
I appreciate you uh, mentioning that. And one of the reasons I appreciate it so much is because it speaks to, again, what Schwaller de Lubitz called the intelligence of the heart. That as we look at these things, yes, there are specific scientific interpretations where we know what the ancient Kemites were saying, but it is good to also look with ancestral eyes to see what is being revealed to us in that way. And that leads to this next symbol, Jerumah, the self-mastered one, the self-mastered one. And in the book of Amenemope, uh, Karinga tells us that Amenemope says the self-mastered man or woman sets him or herself apart. He or she is like a tree grown in fertile ground. It grows green and doubles its yield of fruit. Its fruit is sweet, its shade is pleasant, and its end is reached in the garden. Here again, reaching back into my background in ministry, I think of Psalm 1, where the psalmist talks about how the righteous man is planted like a tree by the rivers of water. So all of these different connections are so very, very important. Okay.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Another example, this one's near and dear to my heart, Seba. And the reason that this is near and dear to my heart is because Seba has several meanings, one of which is master teacher. And some of you all may be aware that one of Dr. Asa Hilliard's books is called Seba, The Reawakening of the African Mind. Seba has three primary meanings: teach, door, and star. What this, along with other research information, tells us is that the ancient African philosophy of education is that the teacher opens the door so that to the universe so that the student may shine like a star. The teacher opens the door to the universe so that the student may shine like a star. And I promise
Is
you,
it all right if I start screaming? Um,
please,
because
let the spirit use you.
that is beautiful. Yes, keep going, brother. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That is that is top ranking, as we would say, as the Rastas would say. It is top ranking.
So most teachers who go through training and end up teaching in schools, they've never received this kind of information about what it means to actually be a teacher, and the tremendous responsibility that we have from our ancestral tradition. And we have the oldest tradition of educational excellence on planet Earth. I can't speak about what's going on other planets, but on planet Earth, we got it on lockdown, all right? And so it was first seen, as far as we know, Dr. Malefi Asante tells us, uh, back in the tomb of Antef, King Antef the Fourth. Okay, um, I'm sorry, King Antef the Second. The second. So the Seba was the wise moral teacher or master teacher. The Sebait is the wisdom teaching or the curriculum that the Seba would use. These concepts were found in the tomb of King Antef II and dated at 2052 BCE. So that's over 4,000 years ago. Um, the picture that you see is King Antef IV, though it was found in the tomb of King Antef II. Couldn't find a picture of King Antef II. But if King Antef IV looked like this, then we can uh, we can make a reasonable assumption that King Antef the second looks similar. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, this is the term Sebait written in Medu Neter, which refers to the curriculum or the wisdom teaching. Okay. Another term that Dr. Hilliard introduced us to was Wahimi Masu. Sometimes you'll see it spelled without the vowels, or sometimes as Dr. Jacob Carruthers spells it, he adds in vowels for ease of pronunciation. There you see it written in Medu Neter, but Wahimi Mesu means rebirth or repetition of birth. This is very significant because the central part of the ancient Kemetic education system was that a person had to be reborn into their higher self, their highest self, or their God self. This is so important to understand that the education process was seen as a birthing process. And you would go through some of the same things. So as I teach my education students at Clark Atlanta University, we don't just refer to it as a classroom. We call it a class womb.
Mm, mm,
A class womb.
mm.
And so I want you to do a little bit of math with me for just a second, Baba Imhotep. And these are not trick questions, but stay with me. How many months are in a year?
12.
12 months in a year. I'd like for you to subtract 2 months for summer vacation. How many months do you have left?
10.
10. If you were to subtract from 10 months, subtract 2 weeks for the winter break, holiday break, another week for spring break, and then another week for various holidays throughout the year, how many months do you have left?
9.
9 months. It's not a classroom, it's a class womb. And as I
Mm.
tell my students who are training to be teachers and administrators and leaders, it's a class womb. And by the end of the year, you're going to give birth to something. The question is what? Who will these children be? Who will these students be? They come in at one level of consciousness, and hopefully, prayerfully, by the end of the year, they will be at a higher level of consciousness and competence. Consciousness is mindset, competence is skill set. Okay.
Mm. Mm.
So this issue of rebirth, again, these concepts that I'm sharing with you are repetitive throughout so much of the literature and culture of ancient Kemet. They are inescapable. You see it all over. You see it on the walls of the temple. You see it on the writings in papyrus and papyri. So it's a constant theme that we continue to see. And then, of course, there's the concept of Ma'at Keru. We know Ma'at to mean truth, justice, and righteousness. Also reciprocity, balance, order, and harmony. But Ma'at Keru means true of voice and triumphant. This is what we want to be in our lives, and certainly when we're judged at the end of this life. If we're able to balance the scales of Ma'at on the day of judgment, it was said that we would be Ma'at Keru, true of voice and triumphant. And this is so important that we speak Medu Neter. Medu Neter meaning word of God. Medu Neter means word of God. Medu Nefer means beautiful speech. So good speech or God speech. Okay. This idea, again, the power of the word. Medu Neter, divine speech or God speech. Medu Nefer, beautiful speech or good speech. The notion is that we must be true of voice and triumphant, and there are about 4 characteristics of beautiful and divine speech. And I used to teach this when I used to teach middle school to my 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Divine speech or
Wait a
Medu
minute.
Neter.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did you say that you used to teach this to fifth, sixth, and seventh grade? This is beautiful because
Oh,
usually
yeah.
you have to wait till you get to college to get that.
Mm,
This is when we need this, and in those early grades,
yeah.
that
6th,
is.
7th, and 8th grade. And I taught them there are 4 levels or dimensions to divine speech.
Mhm.
Divine speech is knowing what to say,
Yes. Yes.
when to say it,
Yes.
how to say it,
Yes. Yes.
and when to remain silent. And
Oh.
you have to have all 4 dimensions in order for it to be divine speech, not 1 or 2 or 3 out of 4. No, it's got to be all 4. Knowing what to say. So choosing your words carefully. When to say it. sometimes it's not right to say the first thing that comes to mind. You might want to take some time, or maybe the person isn't ready to receive it. Knowing what
Yes.
to say, when to say it, how to say it, formulating the right set of words in the right order, uh, with the right tone. How you say something is as important as what you say, right? Um, so imagine if you were to say to somebody, "What's troubling you?" Now compare that to, "What's wrong with you?" You see the difference in tone, word choice, energy, and delivery? So divine speech is knowing what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and when to remain silent. And in the age of social media, Baba Imhotep, I can't tell you how many times I have been about to post something on social media and I just have to hit the delete button because I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, oh, yes,
this is
yes,
not going to be productive for anyone.
yes. Social media, I was saying this Sunday, social media has me practicing or trying to practice all of the 10 virtues, uh, par-
Yes, yes.
particularly 9 and 10. Cultivate, distinguish the ability to distinguish right from wrong and distinguish the ability to tell the real from the unreal.
Oh, that's big. That's big. I'm glad you mentioned that because in Kepra, there is a whole chapter on the 10 cardinal virtues.
All right, all
And
right.
in it, I hone in, we are truly brothers of the same mind, vibrating on the same frequency, because I talk about how that particular one talks about that the initiate has to have the ability to distinguish between truth and falsehood, but some translations actually mean to be able to distinguish between the real and the unreal.
Yes,
And that's very important for us today in this age where you have chat bots that are just generating things to throw out there onto
mm,
social media as
mm,
weapons of mass distraction and
yeah,
weapons of mass deception. In
yes,
addition, you have um, artificial intelligence putting all sorts of things out there. And as Tony Browder tells us, the real AI is African intelligence that we really need to be in tune with. So very important to be able to distinguish between the real and the unreal. With the advent of AI, artificial intelligence, they can take anybody's voice, the voice of some of our great leaders, and
yes,
put
yes,
anything to that.
yes.
And as well as not just the voice, but the visual appearance. I'll give you a quick example. I wish I had taken a picture of it. I'm sure I can find it online. I was on campus one time, and you know how people put these little postcards on your windshield advertising parties and stuff like that at
Yeah, yeah,
clubs and all that. And
yeah.
so it had a picture of Martin. It was a Martin Luther King holiday weekend, but they're advertising a party at the club. So they have a picture of Martin, but then uh, the face of Martin, but then they got him in all these gold chains with a gold tooth and all this kind of. I'm like,
Wow,
a
wow.
young person who doesn't know anything about Dr. King would have a completely different view of who he was. Um, and you can't say that that won't happen. He's one of the few leaders that many of our children do learn about, but they don't learn the truth about him. And I'll never forget years ago when I was teaching eighth grade, an eighth grader came up to me after I had just done a lesson on Dr. King. He came up to me, imagine this. He said, is Dr. King still alive? So,
Wow.
so what
Wow.
our children are not receiving, I can't emphasize enough how little they know about our history and culture and why we have to be very mindful of what people are doing with artificial intelligence. We have to be able to distinguish between the real and the unreal.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, yes, indeed.
I think, yeah, this is the last one I wanted to share. Aku. Aku is an ancestor or to be or become spirit or a light being. I said, wow, that is powerful. To be an ancestor, spirit, or light being. which in essence are almost like one and the same. An ancestor, the spirit that is a light being. Now, when it says light being, that's very significant because, we can only see with our two physical eyes less than 1% of all there is that is to be seen.
All right. All right.
In the light
All right.
spectrum,
All
you
right.
got all these different kinds of waves, gamma waves and radio waves, and all these different kind of waves. The human eye can only detect 1%, less than 1% of all there is to be seen with all the different kinds of light. Okay. Same thing with our sense of hearing.
Mhm.
That's why you can blow a dog whistle and a dog can hear it, but we can't because they're hearing on a frequency that we can't hear. And so this is why our ancestors came up with the concept of the ujat, or what some people call the third eye, which is really the first eye, the eye of all seeing enlightenment, because it was understood that you couldn't just rely on your two physical eyes. So the great poet Listerville Middleton says, sharpen your eye and tune your ear so you know what you see and understand what you hear. So the
Mhm.
ancestral realm, to be a spirit or a light being, they are radiating a quality of light that the average human being can't see because they haven't been through that initiation to be able to see it. But that initiation was a part of the basic curriculum in the ancient Kemetic sacred science system. So, Baba, these are just a few of the concepts
Dr.
that I
Akua, you may not be old enough to remember this group, but it was a group called Earth, Wind, and Fire, and
and
and and and they had a song called "Open Our Eyes." That was like in the early days, like in '73. Open Our Eyes.
wow.
Uh,
So I'm gonna tell you something really interesting.
all right, all right.
Ah, and I got to go back and find that song because I'm not familiar with it. But Earth, Wind, and Fire is my favorite group.
Yes.
And here's why. When I was about 7, 8 years old, I used to go in my older brother's room and he was playing these Earth, Wind, and Fire records. And I would sit on his bed and listen to this music. And as you know, they had Kemetic artwork and motifs all throughout their album covers. And I would sit there, listen to the music, and just be mesmerized and transfixed by the music on the one hand, but these colorful, beautiful album covers on the other hand. And
Yes.
you open it up and it's just beautiful comedic imagery. Well, I didn't know that the things in the album cover were actually real places. Okay.
Mm, mm, mm.
Um, and then adding to that, I didn't know that one day I would have the opportunity to visit those places. So I've been on quite a journey. And believe it or not, uh, Philip Bailey Jr. Found out about my work and became a fan of my work. Philip Bailey Jr.
Wow. Wow.
is the son of Philip Bailey Sr., and Philip Bailey Jr. is now in the band with his father, carrying on Earth, Wind, and Fire. So he introduced his father to my work. And I've had the opportunity to meet both of them. And I did a webinar for their family, similar to what I'm doing for you all right now, because they wanted, when COVID hit, they wanted to do a book study as a family. So we got online and we did that with one of my books. So Earth, Wind, and Fire to me is one of the baddest bands in the universe.
Yes.
And they had
Yes.
a profound impact on me. So I have a picture, I was looking for it, but I have a picture of me standing in front of the Temple of Abu Simbel, and then a
Mm.
picture of one of their album covers, which is the same thing. And when
Yeah,
I,
that's from that All in All
all in
album.
all,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
all in
yeah,
all.
yeah.
And what I didn't know when I was about 8 or 9 years old that that was a real place.
Oh wow.
But that music took me there.
Mm.
And so one of the things when I train teachers, I say that's what I was looking at and listening to at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And what I was looking at and listening to 30 years later, I've led over 1,000 people on tours throughout Kemet. I have another one coming up. Um,
Did we have a question, Dr. Akua. One of our one of Brother John Jackson writes. He said, "Did Philip Bailey stop being a Christian?" You may or may not know that. He sent it to everyone. Um, I don't know.
so I had dinner with them. This is back in August. They came to town for a show and we had dinner. I believe he is still a Christian. He's very knowledgeable about his history and culture
Mhm.
and studies a lot about it and allows that to inform his spiritual walk. Um, that I believe is due in large part to his son. His son was initiated into Ifa and is very knowledgeable about the ancient Kemetic tradition. He's been to Egypt and so forth. Um, and so he's introduced them to a number of those concepts. Interestingly enough, when Maurice White established Earth, Wind, and Fire, he was the brainchild behind a lot of the Kemetic imagery and
Yes.
metaphysical message and cultural messages that were in the music. Uh, a lot of the other brothers were playing what Maurice and others were writing, but they weren't necessarily into it like he was.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it took Philip's son to kind of reintroduce the essence of what Earth, Wind, and Fire was about to all of them.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. But I often tell teachers if at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I was looking at this imagery and then I end up in front of the Temple of Abu Simbel, based on what I was looking at when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, what are our children looking at and listening to today?
Oh.
And where will they be 30 years from now based on what they're looking at and listening to right now?
Now let me just digress a little. That is a powerful and yet scary question. But let's go back to Abu Simbel,
Hmm.
and we're looking at the water. I was in I was at that place, Dr. Ben's tour, 1981, and it was a Nubian that came up and he said this. He said there are 11 temples submerged under that water.
Mm, mm, mm.
So there's other temples there
Yeah,
that we don't even know about.
absolutely. Absolutely. I found it just to give a visual
Okay.
for
All
those who
right.
are on. So this is me 30
Wow.
years later. There's the
Wow.
Earth, Wind, and Fire
Wow, man.
album cover. Had no idea when I was first looking at that was a real place. Okay. And then this is the first time I met Philip and his son. Me and my wife met them backstage when they were here in Atlanta. Wonderful people. And then this past year, I met the whole family, his daughter and others and so forth, and the whole band. So wonderful. When you set yourself on a course in life, there's certain things that you can't account for. Like I never would have imagined, that somebody who had such a profound impact on my life that I would not only get a chance to meet them, but also, have a chance to spend time with them and, really share with them how much their music has meant to me over the years. It's just been a blessing in so many different ways. And brother, that leads me to the next part of what I wanted to share with you all, because as I look at those that are on this call this evening, we could sit here and philosophize and pontificate and feel real good about the things that we're talking about. But it will mean very little if we don't know how to pass it on to our youth.
All right.
And one of the things that I specialize in is what Dr. Asa Hillier called intergenerational cultural transmission. Those are just some big words to say, uh, the ability to pass on the best of what we know to young people. So I've spent a considerable part of my life trying to figure out how to pass this on to our young people in such a way that makes it stick, and makes them feel an obligation to live up to the demanding standards that our ancestors had for us. And so, what I would like to do is, I'd like to walk you all through something that we've created that each of us can use to be able to do that. But before I share this with you, let me ask for those that are on the line, and you can just put this in the chat box. If you have uh, a school-age child, grandchild, niece, or nephew, would you just put yes in the chat box? If you have a school-age child, grandchild, niece, or nephew, or you work with children, okay? Or you have, you interact with children in some way at some time, okay? I see a couple of yeses so far, okay? So I want to show you a resource that we have that can help us to reach our young people. And it's called Reading Revolution Online. Reading Revolution Online. Now, I got to give you the backstory, so bear with me for just a moment. To give you an idea of the needs of our children today, a recent study was just released when I Googled reading scores for Black children. There is an organization called the National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP, and they release every year what they call the nation's report card. So look at what it says when I Googled uh, 2024 NAEP Black Student Reading Scores. It says in 2024, Black students had an average score that was 24 points lower than for white students. This performance gap was not significantly different from that of 1998. This has been going on for decades. Now, we're not trying to compare ourselves to where white children are, because white children's achievement is mediocre at best. So we're not comparing ourselves to white children. We're comparing ourselves to Black excellence. Are you with me, Baba?
Yes, 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 indeed.
And so
Yes,
we have to have a way to transmit the culture and the skills, the consciousness and the competence. So when I was a language arts teacher, I interviewed for a reading specialist position. And uh, in my interview, the principal said, "Well, Mr. Akua," I was Mr. Akua at that time, "if we hire you, we've got one problem." I said, "What's that?" He said, "We're going to be sending you all the students who have not passed the state test in reading, but we don't have a curriculum in place." I said, "Sir, no problem. I'll create it." And the reality was, when he said they didn't have a curriculum in place, I was like, yes, because I wasn't going to teach from it, no way. Because I never did. I always developed my own resources that I knew our children needed, and I knew whatever they had was not something that was going to be culturally relevant or responsive to the needs of Black children. So every day I would write up a brief reading selection, like you see here. I know you can't, I know the print is small. I just want you to see the structure of it. Brief reading selection on the left-hand side, 10 multiple choice questions on the right-hand side, in the structure of how they would see it on the state test. The intent was to increase reading comprehension, vocabulary development, writing and critical thinking skills, cultural awareness, and lastly, look at what's last on my list, increase test taking skills. Obviously, we want them to pass the test, but not just pass it, excel on it.
yes, yes.
So it wasn't enough for them to know how to read the words. I needed for them to know how to read their world. I needed for them to know about our Black heroes and sheroes, ancient and modern. Well, over time, after writing about 30 of these reading selections, Spirit kind of whispered in my ear and said, "This needs to be a book." So I called upon a good friend of mine who was also a teacher named Tavara Stevens, and we penned the book Reading Revolution. And that book did very well. It went all across the nation, sold thousands of copies and everything. But in 2018, we began to digitize the information in the book. we added a captioned video for each reading selection. And then we added not only reading comprehension questions, we added vocabulary development questions, grammar, and writing questions, all in an interactive platform online. And these are just a few of the Black heroes and sheroes that young people learn about, but not just
Mm,
young people.
mm, mm.
Because, we didn't get, many of us anyway, didn't get this growing up because we were miseducated too.
Yeah.
So adults love this resource also. Okay. I'll come back to that and tell you about the Reading Revolution team. But what I want to do is I'm going to take you inside of the Reading Revolution platform to show you and give you a brief demonstration. Okay. Now, hold on. Before I do that, let me put in the chat box where you all can get the book. I forgot to put that where you can get the book, um,
Yes, indeed.
Kepra. We want to make sure that those that want to get that can. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on this link, and we appreciate your support for those that can, and I promise you, you'll find the book to be very, very interesting. Okay. All right. So now let me go back to Reading Revolution Online and take you behind the scenes on the platform.
So now, with respect to Reading Revolution, so this can be used in schools or like rites of passage programs, things of that nature.
Absolutely, and it is.
Mhm.
The problem is we can't wait for schools and school districts to get a clue. It
Yeah.
is being used in some school districts, but we're going directly to Black parents because when you look at the cultural and political climate that we're in now, and the fact that they are now rolling back things that we never thought a president could shut down, we don't want to leave that in their hands. This is our responsibility to make sure that our children get this. We need to go to our faith-based institutions, our churches, our rites of passage programs, community centers, and in the home itself, and make this a family affair. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm inside the platform. You won't see this on the website until you get a membership yourself. Um, Let me click on this one about Ahmed Baba. Okay. So when I click on this, you see we have a power quote. This one says, books are worth their weight in gold. So if I was teaching this, I would ask my students, I said, if books are worth their weight in gold, what's a book that you read that you love that you would recommend to other people? I'll ask that to you, Bob and Motep. What's a book that you love that you would recommend to other people?
I would say the Hussia.
The Husia by Milano Karingas.
Oh,
That's
let me, Dr. Akua, let me just say, we at WOSE community, we have that word church, and it's kind of a misnomer and it throws people off. But our four holy books in
mm,
our church are the Hosea, Destruction of Black Civilization, Stolen Legacy, and 2000 Seasons by Aikwe Arma.
I say, yes. So I want you to remember this statement, books are worth their weight in gold, okay? Now we have for each of the reading selections, we have a power quote. We have baobab vocabulary. We call it baobab vocabulary because, as you know, in African tradition, the baobab tree was called the tree of life. The elders and the mothers of the city would meet under the shade of the baobab tree. Um, the the people in the village would use the resources from the tree for much of their needs. They would even hollow out the trunk to store water and food and other important things. So it's called the tree of life. We call it baobab vocabulary because understanding these words and doing these activities brings life to our children's communication skills, critical thinking skills, right? And reading comprehension skills. So these are the words that the students will encounter in the reading selection. As we scroll down, we have a captioned video, and the caption video follows exactly what's in the reading selection. In the reading selection, you can see where each of the words are underlined for, the vocabulary words are underlined for easy identification. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, each of the videos is on average about 3 minutes. This one's just under 3 minutes, and I do want to play it for you because I want you to experience what young people will. Now, when I play this for you, I want you to listen very carefully because what is about to be said, there may be some information, though those that are on the call this evening, I know you all are very knowledgeable, but you may still even learn something that you weren't aware of, okay? So here we go. And I'm going to turn the captions on maybe about a minute in. I want you to see it both ways, with and without captions, because when you get it, you can turn them on or you can turn them off. All right, so here we go. Oops. Ahmed Baba and the University of Sankore. Can you hear that?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
From the 1300s to the 1700s, Timbuktu was one of the greatest cities in all of Africa. Situated near the Niger River, this great center of learning was known throughout the land. It was also an important trading center for gold, salt, iron, and books. Timbuktu had quite a reputation for educational excellence and wealth, so much so that students and scholars came from all over Africa, Asia, and Europe to study at the famed University of Sankore. Being near the river gave people easy access to this thriving city of trade and education and attracted many people. Ahmed Baba was the president of the University of Sankore for 30 years. During this time, he upheld the African standard of excellence, running the university with great vision. Also during this time, he authored 42 books. This means he wrote more than one book per year, in addition to his duties as president. Additionally, Ahmed Baba had over 1,600 books that he owned in his personal library. This shows that he knew the power of books to transform the mind. To Africans who introduced the art of writing to the world, books were sacred and holy. Books were valued so much that people paid for books using only gold. The book a person desired to purchase would be placed on one side of a scale, and gold dust would be sprinkled on the other side of the scale until the scales were balanced. Books in Timbuktu and in the empires of Mali and Songhai were literally worth their weight in gold. Because of this, the book industry was just as lucrative as the gold, salt, and iron industries. People who studied at Timbuktu learned law, medicine, and healing, writing and literature, astronomy, the study of the stars, and agriculture, the study of farming, and much more. They took their knowledge and understanding of what they learned back to other parts of Africa, Asia, and Europe. Some even came to America. History also shows us that virtually every home in Timbuktu had an extensive library of books and manuscripts. All right, what'd you think about that video, Baba?
Oh man, I wish I could go back to fourth grade and start all over again. That is beautiful.
Well,
I just
that's
want to also say that in answer to your question about a book, Brother Damani put in the chat that one of his favorite books that he would recommend is The Maroon Within by Dr. Hilliard.
Oh, yes, that's definitely a very powerful text. Ashe. Well, I want to run you through some of these activities. When you scroll down past the reading selection, we have our vocabulary activity. So words on the left-hand side, definitions on the right-hand side. This particular one is a click and drag activity, right? So we know, for example, that agriculture is the study of farming. So they take the definition and click it to the word. We know that sacred means holy. So we'll click and drag that. And I won't go through them all, but
Wow.
you get the
Wow.
idea, right?
Yeah.
Astronomy is the study of the stars and so forth. When a child finishes that, they would then click at the bottom and our system would score that for them. For each of the over 100 reading selections, you have 4 activities. Again, over 100 reading selections with captioned videos, 4 activities for each one. The second activity is the comprehension activity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset that. I'm going to run through this real quick. And here you see the reading selection and then the question. Some of the vocabulary words are in here as well. I'm going to get several of them wrong on purpose. We know the word situated means located, but I'm going to put the wrong answer just so that you can see how our system scores it. And I'm going to run through these real quick because I know we're winding down on time. Okay. But when I
We have
finish,
about, we have about 20 minutes left.
okay, okay. So as I finish these up, what happens is um, you submit the test, and then you can see oh man, I got some work to do. I got a 60. So it shows which ones you got incorrect and which ones you got correct. So a child can retake it as many times as necessary to make sure that they score with proficiency, which for me, I prefer a 90 or above. Okay. But the reason that we have the reading selection before each question is because good teaching means that we want them to justify their answer in the text. We don't want them to just guess at something. They should be able
Mhm.
to justify their answer with
Yes.
what they see in the text and point out exactly where it is in the text. So we've got the vocabulary activity, we've got the reading comprehension activity, and the third of the 4 activities is a grammar review. Okay. This is where we take concepts from the reading selection and we have them in sentences. And it is the duty of the student to retype each sentence, adding capitalization, punctuation, and changing verb tense where necessary. Now, we don't have time for me to do all that, but you can see I'm going to get a 0 because, I didn't complete it correctly. But this is one of the things that our children have challenges with in their writing. Many of our children write the way that we text. And
Mm,
the way that we text is not grammatically correct.
right.
And so they
Right.
don't know the difference. They don't know how to translate it oftentimes into standard English. And since this is the language that we have, we need to master the language that we have access to and then pick up other languages along the way. But we got to start with where we are. So to be a child in America and not be able to master English is deeply problematic. That is an issue that compromises our survival as a people. So that's the third activity, okay? The fourth activity, if we're going to have a reading revolution, then we also need to have a writing revolution. And that's exactly what the fourth activity is. There's a writing prompt for each of the reading selection. This one says Ahmed Baba wrote 42 books. If you were going to write a book, what would it be about? Would it be fiction or nonfiction? Who would the book be for? What age range or audience? Describe and explain. So this is the only one of the 4 activities that our system does not score. The teacher or the parent would score it or evaluate it based on their purposes. But our system does archive all of the writing, all of the answers and everything so that you can see the progress that's being made by the child over time. So I want you to imagine, Baba Imhotep, imagine that a parent says to their child, hey, I'm going to run to the store. I'm going to be back in 30 to 45 minutes. When I get back, I want you to have finished doing the Reading Revolution selection on Ahmed Baba and the University of Sankore, right? Or even better than that would be this. Hey, come on and run to the store with me. And while we're on the way to the store, instead of you playing one of these little video games or listening to some music that does not uplift us as a people, I want you to go on Reading Revolution Online and complete this on the way to the store and while we're in the store or on the way back home from the store. Think about how many times you've been in the store and you've seen a child on an iPad or a phone playing little mindless games, right? But what
Yes.
if we could have our children learning about their history and culture in an engaging and informative way? This is the purpose, part of the purpose behind Reading Revolution Online. Okay. The last thing that I wanted to share with you all about Reading Revolution Online is I want to introduce you to the Reading Revolution team. Teams win championships. So I wasn't able to build all this by myself. There are a lot of people who have expertise in areas that I don't. And so I want to introduce you to the team, which is mostly my family. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you see my co-author of the book, Reading Revolution, Tavares Stevens. In the bottom left-hand corner is my wife of 30 years. Black love is black power, Ashe.
I
Uh,
say, I say.
she was responsible for some of the voiceovers. So you're not just going to hear a male voice. On a number of the videos, you hear a female voice. So she did voiceovers and editing. Just up to her right is my oldest son, Jabari. Uh, when we first started this, he was still in college and he was majoring in computer game design with a minor in computer science and software engineering. He is now an aerospace engineer. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
this is the one that was a lot smarter than me. The brother's bad. But he's the one that was responsible for the audio engineering on the videos. Okay. His younger brother, my second son, Amari, to the right, is the videographer and photographer. He's been my videographer and photographer since he was 17 years old. I'm sorry, 15 years old. And he provides that service to a number of prominent black speakers, national black speakers around the country. And so he's the one that was responsible for the videos, right? So he was, I want to say 17 when we started, 17 or 18 when we started. And he is now in his junior year at Georgia State studying film. But when he saw the scope and scale of what we were trying to produce, he called upon his girlfriend, Ayana, who's in the bottom right-hand corner, because she's an outstanding filmmaker as well. She just graduated from University of West Georgia in film. And so she has helped him on some of the videos as well. And then in the middle is my niece, who also did some voiceovers and some editing. So you can see it's a family affair. So now
Yes.
we've got all these reading selections, we've got all these activities, we've got all these beautiful captioned videos. But how do you put that into an interactive online platform? And that's where I was introduced to Miss Jennifer Allen on the right-hand side, an amazing computer scientist, graduate of an HBCU, Hampton University, my alma mater. And she is the one who put together that platform that I just shared with you. And she also runs it and keeps it updated and everything. So as you can see, Baba, this is black from top to bottom, side to side is black, black, bliggity black, black, every which way you look at it, right? Because we want our people to know that we can do this. There are people that don't think that we can do this as we can do this as a people. And so we're demonstrating it. So when we call it Reading Revolution, it is actually a revolution in terms of what we're doing. We're currently reaching thousands of Black children with Reading Revolution Online. The goal is to reach over 1 million. And I wonder if y'all can help us with that objective. Imagine if over 1 million Black children had access to Reading Revolution Online.
Yes.
So I want to offer something very special to everybody that's on the line, and you can share this with whoever you're affiliated with if they want to participate in it as well. Reading Revolution Online for a 1 year membership is normally $397. We're offering a Black History Month special because we want as many of our people to have access to it as possible. So instead of $397, we're offering it for only $197. And for that $197, You're going to get over 100 reading selections, captioned videos, uh, vocabulary, grammar, and writing activities. Okay, so I'm going to put the link here, and you can utilize it and spread it as much as you want, because we are on a serious mission to bring literacy and consciousness to our people. Um, so I'll pause here to see if there are any questions or comments that you or others may have.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What
Whoever.
is the age group?
The age group is elementary to high school.
Okay.
Elementary to high school.
I mean, that's first, second, third grade or what?
Yes. So the primary grades, we just released the primary edition, which is for grades 1 to 3. And then we also have the edition for 4th and up. Okay. So for that 197, you get access to both of those editions. And if you want, I can even share with you one of the ones that's for the younger kids, and you'll be able to see a distinct difference in how it's laid out. For one thing, the videos tend to be shorter, and they move a little faster, more they're more engaging for a younger child. Okay, so give me just a second, and I will pull that up for you.
Now, what I want, my name is Bobby. I'm here in Sacramento. I have a question. The 197 only covers for a year, right? It's annually?
Yes.
Okay, now do we still have access to the material after the year is over? We have to re-up.
No, you have to re-up because we'll be adding
Okay.
to it. By this time next year, we will likely have almost upwards of 200 reading selections and video clips. So we're constantly adding to it. Our goal is to have at least 360 videos representing 360 degrees of knowledge, a firm foundation for our children to understand who they are, their cultural and spiritual identity. So that's the goal. So yeah, you would have to re-up every year because there will be additional things added on as we go. Okay. Let me share. Oh, go ahead. You have another question?
Yeah.
Will parents have access to the metrics? So, for instance, how many times they take the test or where they start, that kind of thing. Because just by trial and error, just to be honest, you can finish a test, but do the parents get to know that they tried 5 times? And like, are they keeping track of the progress
Right.
for the
Yes.
individual and reporting it to?
Yes, you would be able to get a report to see how your child is doing. And that's very, very important because we do want parents to keep track of that and to be mindful of that as they're working with their child. That's very, very important. Thank you for that question. All right. I'm going to let you hear this one real quick. This is Ronald McNair. And he says, before you can make a dream come true, you must first have one. So you'll notice the difference in this one. It's only 1 minute and 21 seconds, and it's for the primary grades. So check this out.
Ronald McNair, an African.
Can you all hear that?
Yes, yes.
Ronald McNair, an African-American space hero. Ronald McNair was a smart and very brave astronaut who loved the stars and space. He was born in Lake City, South Carolina. Ronald was a great student. He also loved sports and playing his saxophone. He played football and was very good at karate. He loved to read books. He really liked books about space. He was so curious about space, he went on to become a scientist and then an astronaut. Ronald McNair flew in a special spaceship called the Challenger Space Shuttle. He went up into the sky and into space to learn more about our galaxy and teach the world new things. His job was to operate the shuttle's robotic arm. He even played music with his saxophone in space. Ronald McNair was a hero and a role model because he showed us that we can reach for the stars and make our dreams come true.
All right, so that's an example of one of the videos for the little ones. And I'll conclude by just kind of sharing something that will be some food for thought for you all.
Dr. Akua, we have a question. Brother Jerry, go ahead.
Yes, Doctor. I see on your website you have testimonies from various educators who have been using this or currently using this. Is there any reference that you have to educators or school districts in California or other private schools that may be using it?
Not private schools yet, but I do a good deal of work out in California. I probably need to reach back to some of the educators that I know there. I'm sorry, I take that back. There's a sister in LA who has an after-school program called the Knowledge Shop, and they use it there. She has endorsed it. I need to get her endorsement. They use it every day after school. So we have a lot of people using it nationally and even internationally. We have people up in Canada who are using it and loving it. And they've been using it since it came out in 2021. As you can see here, Dr. Marcus Jackson said it improved reading levels by 1 to 2.5 grade levels in a year. And that was just from them using it at school. They weren't using it at home. So you can imagine if you've got parents using it with their children at home, that takes it to a whole nother level as well. Okay. So
Thank you.
as I mentioned, oh, go ahead. You have another question?
No, that was it. Thank you.
As I mentioned, our goal is to reach 1 million plus Black children. That's our solution. And I hate to be graphic, but I need for y'all to strap your seatbelts in because it's gonna hurt a little bit. But I gotta make it plain, everybody, because if we don't do this as a people, this is what we get. If we don't act, this is what we get. This is what happens with our young girls. This is what happens with our young boys because they have been decentered and disconnected from the best of our culture. So if I can take it back to the golden age of hip hop, I'm sure y'all remember a song that said, you can get with this, or you can get with that, or you can get with this, or
There's
you can
another
get with that.
There's another question, Dr. Akua. There's another question. I hate to interrupt you because you're really going there. But
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sebastian.
Question with the membership, is that a 365 or is it a calendar year?
365.
Okay. The next thing is that I noticed that you had the poster pack.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still available?
Yes, it is. The poster pack
and that's
available.
Okay, that's on your website?
Yes. Let me pull that up for y'all. Give me just a second.
And I'm so happy you did this. I've been turning people on to like the Casey's Gracie's Corner.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right, and this right here is much better.
Oh wow, thank you. I appreciate that. So here you see we have the Black History poster pack, we have multicultural posters, and we also have the African Proverbs poster pack. Let me click here and show you the posters, okay? So there are 30 posters in the pack. Take a look at these.
Wow.
And scroll through them. Because I got tired of going to all these schools, Baba, and seeing all these Black children, but nothing on the wall that reflects Black excellence.
Sure.
Hey, you have to create a climate of transformation. So Spirit just said, look, you need to get them started and help them out with it. So started producing these posters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is to equip and empower our people but also it's to hold school districts accountable that say that they want to, do right by Black children and so forth. Well, if you're serious, then we have the resources for you. Okay. So the other thing,
You have two hands, just for you to keep in mind.
oh, okay, go ahead. I'm just pulling up something else while y'all are.
Okay, Sister Judy and then Sister Tony. Go ahead.
Well, greetings to everyone, but Dr. Chike Akua, this is Judy.
Hey, Judy, how you doing?
I am doing wonderful. I am so excited that you're here once again. This is not your first visit to Black Knowledge Matters, and I want to thank Minister Imhotep for making sure that you were here this go round. Thank you. So I just wanted to tell you how much I really appreciate you. And I met Dr. Akua back in 2000, known him for a long time, and met him back during the Mata days and Ken Bridges. But I just want to say this is a brother. I'm always trying to promote him as much as I can. He walks the talk, and he has been on the front line for educating our young people, parents and teachers, educators for just over a couple of decades. And I just want to thank you so much. And I'm glad you're here. And I'll talk to you soon about some more ways I can be supportive. Thank you.
Judy, I did not know that we went all the way back to Mata. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize that we went that far back, but I have to tell everybody on the line, Judy is how I got here. She's the one that introduced me to you all, I think, and
Yes.
just continue to text me and email me. When are you available? When can you come on and share with us? So I want to thank you so much for tracking me down, Judy, because I know I'm not easy to reach with all the different things that I have going on, but you have definitely been steadfast in that. So thank you very much.
I also just wanted to say I've attended two of his boot camps, which were really good. Tony Browder's daughter was there for one of them. And I mean, I don't know how to say I've never met anybody that walks the talk and really, really is serious about, you're really serious. And that's it. Thank you so much
Well,
for
thank you.
being
I
here.
appreciate you. What I have on the screen here is our African Proverbs poster pack. So the brother mentioned a few minutes ago about the Black History poster pack. This is the African Proverbs poster pack. We know that a lot of our young people and adults are missing a lot of that mother wit and wisdom that's such a key component to our culture. And so this is a tremendous way to make sure that our homes, our offices, our classrooms are reflective of the cultural wisdom and wealth that we have as a people. So there are a number of different ways that you can support. As I mentioned earlier, you can get the book Kepra, which I know that you'll love. I appreciate it when you support what we're doing. Okay. You can get your Reading Revolution online membership. Excuse me. Or you can order posters. I say get in where you fit in. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And so I want to thank you all in advance for your support. Thank you, Baba Imhotep, for facilitating this evening. And I don't know
Let me just say I really appreciate you coming. We're up against a lifeline, and I don't like the word deadline. We have two things going on. We're 4 minutes into Women of Wose, but I reached out to Mama Connie to let her know that we would probably go over. Before we get to Sister Tony and Brother John, I just want to acknowledge Brother Jabari Jahi turned 88 today.
Wow.
So I just want to acknowledge he's original elder of Wose Sacramento, and I'm just glad that he's here, and I just want to acknowledge him today. Thank you, Brother Damani, for bringing. I saw you guys in the car, and now you're in Jabari's kitchen. I'm glad that he could be with us.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Tony, and then John, and then we'll go. Okay.
Mr. Imhotep, I'd like to say something real quick when you get through.
Okay. Tony, John, and then Shango. Go ahead.
The yearly subscription, is it per household or the cost for it, or is it per student?
Yeah, it can be for the household. So if you have, 2, 3, or 4 children or something in the household, that's fine.
Thank you.
All
Mhm.
right. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Dr. Akua. I usually ask this question every time Minister Imhotep has one of Black scholar geniuses on his show. I always ask this same question because I'm I know your focus is on the youth, but there are guys like me who have I'm 71 and just became conscious and slowly becoming competent at a late age in life. What would be like I said, I always ask this question, what suggestion, because there's so much information to try to catch up on, 60 plus years of my life, didn't have a clue about none of what you guys talking about today. So now I'm aware of it and trying to catch up, and all these books and everybody's talking about read. What advice or counsel would you give a guy like me who's hungry, but man, this is a lot.
Yes, it can be overwhelming. It can definitely be overwhelming. I would actually recommend a different book for you. The book that I would recommend for you is called Honoring Our Ancestral Obligations. Use the same link that I put up there for the books, and you'll find it. You just have to, when you get there, you scroll down to it. It has a African mask on the front, but it's called Honoring Our Ancestral Obligations. When you open up to the first page, you can scan the QR code on the first page, and it will take you to 15 brief video clips that cover key concepts that are in the book. So this is the book that I would definitely recommend to you. Honoring Our Ancestral Obligation is written in plain language, and it has the captioned videos. It has a lot of additional information that I think you would appreciate at this point on your journey. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. I'm going to share my screen for just a second and show you. When you go to readingrevolution.org and then click on Books by Akua at the top, the menu at the top, click on Books by Akua, scroll past Kepra, past Education for Transformation, Parent Power, and Reading Revolution. And I think it's about the 5th or 6th book. You'll come to Honoring Our Ancestral Obligations. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. I'm on your page now.
I definitely recommend for you, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Asante sana.
Yes,
All right.
and welcome to the world of consciousness.
All right, Shango, and I'm not sure if Damani still had a question. We have about 2 minutes.
Dr. Akua, it's good to see you again. I had you to come to Wose some years back.
Yes, I remember that. It was a wonderful time presenting to the teachers and so forth.
Exactly. And also, I would like to thank you for that wonderful trip. I went with you when we went to the study of the Moors and whatnot. That was a great African trip that I was on with you some years back too.
Oh, yes, this is Baba Shango. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So good to have you on your brother. Yeah. Man, your presence on that trip was an absolute blessing. And that was incredible. And I so appreciated you inviting me out to Wose in Oakland.
Right.
So I'm actually going to be in Sacramento, I think in a week or two. And hopefully I can catch up with some of you all that are in that area. I'm going to be speaking at one of the nearby colleges. I forget what the name of it is offhand. I think it's San Joaquin.
Is it
San Joaquin Delta Community College, I think it is.
Okay. Uh,
Yeah, that's Delta Community College.
Thank you.
Delta Community College. Yeah.
Thank you, Sebastian. Yeah.
Yeah, but always good to hear from you, Baba Shango.
Yeah, I stay on top of you on Instagram and whatnot.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you and everything that you do.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I want to thank Mama Connie and the women of Wose for letting us go over into your time. Dr. Akua, just want to share this. I put this in the chat, but and I'm sure you're familiar with this term.
Mm-hmm.
It's called where. He or she who remembers and knows is the greatest, the teacher of the star knowledge, seer of the time, space continuum, elder of wisdom, greatest of the grace, greatest, great wisdom. And that's what you've exemplified today, meeting with us. And so I put it in the chat for you to grab. And thank you, my brother, for such a wonderful instruction today. And now, sisters and brothers, brothers, we have to get off, and the sisters are going to do. Glad to see Brother Russell Johnson. I don't know if we've met, but I'm glad that you joined us today. And Minister Bill, Brother Damani, Sebastian. So brothers, we got to go. And I'm going to turn the host over to Mama Connie, and
thank you.
And we gotta bail.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Thank you
Dr.
all so
Akua.
much.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
thank you, brother.
Turn off the
Brother
recording,
Oh,
Baba.
yes.
Peace and
Thank
blessings.
you.
Peace and
I will
blessings.
be buying some of your books. I will be getting some of your books
Thanks so much.
All
and
right.
DVDs.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I'm ordering right now.